Yo, mic check, mic check. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Fly the Cool Guy coming at you with a late review of the New Edition story and the Bobby Brown story simultaneously. I just want to say that BET did a great job at this series, and I want to do a quick review of both the Bobby Brown and the New Edition series as one united show or one united series together. Been a huge fan of New Edition for a long time, for years, and this is probably one of the most anticipated movie series I've been wanting to see, probably since 1996 when I was in high school. Got so many New Edition albums, and I'm a huge hip hop fan, so I don't really listen to a lot of R&B. New Edition is probably one of the few R&B groups or crews that I'll go and buy their album and check it out. I'm more so of a hip-hop guy. It's been that way since maybe 83, 84. I don't really buy a lot of R&B. But I will say I was anticipating this series for a long time. I want to first say that the production value was grade A. BET definitely spent some money on the series, and it was very polished, and it didn't seem like a low-budget bootleg type of movie, so hats off to BET about that. That was pretty dope. There was a lot of things that I already knew being a New Edition fan, and there was a lot of things that I learned in both series about, the entire group altogether, so that was pretty good. Let me first start off with the New Edition story. I thought that the kids was pretty good. They sung really well. Just the story. There was a couple things in the series that I didn't really like. They breezed through a lot of important stuff and didn't really explain certain things. Like for example, when they left Maurice Starr and ended up joining, I'm gonna call them Jump and Shoot Productions. In the movie, they were called. His name was Gary Evans, but Gary Evans was actually a composite character of three other managers that New Edition was signed to during that time. There's a time in New Edition's life where they go from Maurice Starr to Jump and Shoot. What the movie doesn't show is that Jump and Shoot were actually lawyers. They were the lawyers that got New Edition off of the Streetwise deal with Arthur Baker. Why BET didn't show that, or why they concealed that information, I don't understand. But I felt like that was a huge flaw or dislike in my opinion. A lot of people don't know that Maurice Starr tried to take their name from New Edition. So when New Edition was leaving Maurice Starr after they got that check for the 187, the lawyers that sued Maurice Starr for New Edition getting off of Streetwise are the same lawyers that became Jump and Shoot Productions. In the series, they're called Fast Break. There's a scene where Mike discovers their name on the All for Love record, and he barges into Gerald Busby's office and starts kind of yelling and fussing about the situation. But that same guy that Michael Rappaport plays is actually about three different guys. One guy's name is Bill Dern. Another guy's name is Rick Smith. And there's also either a Stephen Mitchett or a Martin Mitchett, which one's a dad and one's a son. Stephen Mitchett ended up managing Bobby Brown, but they don't show Stephen Mitchett at all in the Bobby Brown series. They make it seem like Tommy Brown is his sole manager, but actually Stephen Mitchett was also either a manager or some kind of affiliated guy with Bobby Brown. He was the one that put out that information saying that Ralph had sung most of the records on the Don't Be Cruel album, which isn't true if you actually listen to the albums. Another thing I want to say that they left off was, they didn't really leave it off. They kind of breezed through it, was the time between 86 and 87. There's a lot of stuff that happened there between New Edition and Bobby Brown that it didn't show. For example, they breezed over All for Love. They just totally breezed over that. It went from Bobby Brown being kicked out of the group to bringing in Johnny Gill like super fast. Like, you know what I mean? Like they show they didn't even recreate the cover for the All for Love album. They recreated the cover for Candy Girl. They do the cover for the '84 Cool It Now album. And then when it comes to All for Love, they actually have the original record in Mike's hand. They don't actually recreate that cover. And they only performed one song from that album. And so I said, well, you know, they're missing out a lot. There was a lot going on. They don't really show why Ralph wanted to go solo. They don't really show that. They kind of try to hint to it by using that scene with Ralph and his girlfriend unpacking the stuff. But what they don't show during that era is that Ralph and Bobby were really close. Probably Ralph and Bobby were close from that moment all the way up until probably after Ralph's first solo album in 1990. But they were like a dynamic duo, so to speak. You know, Ralph was the leader of New Edition, was the lead singer of New Edition, but Bobby was like the energy of New Edition at that time. The other three, Belle Biv DeVoe, were more so played the back, but during their performances, Ralph and Bobby got their shine during those shows. They don't really show how Bobby reacts to being kicked out. They show him being kicked out, but they don't really show, you know, how he deals with it, or, you know, what his thoughts are on it. Now, they do show a little bit of it in the Bobby Brown story. You see he comes home and he's selling cocaine. So I always felt like they should have showed some of that stuff in the New Edition story. And another thing, I'm going to come back to this 85, 87. I think BET's biggest flaw with the production was these two series should have been filmed simultaneously. Shooting the New Edition from first and then shooting the Bobby Brown like a year later, they should have just went ahead and filmed everything, cast everybody at once, film everything at once, and then just go and do the edits. You can edit a Bobby Brown story from the footage. You can edit a New Edition story from the footage, and you'll be able to have the full cast intact. You don't have to do patchwork. I think BET, looking back, they should have filmed both series at the same time. And if they finally release these films or this series on DVD, Blu-ray, they need to release them together. If you release a New Edition story and a Bobby Brown story, that's fine, but there needs to be like a dual pack. That would definitely be dope for fans such as myself. Now, back to that era, that All for Love, Blue Moon, King of Stage era. They don't really show that Ralph and Belle Biv DeVoe were not really getting along, and that Ralph was missing shows during that time when there was a quartet and they were traveling. Ralph was missing shows and was spending a lot of time with Bobby. Now, Bobby's King of Stage album did not certify, which means that it didn't sell 500,000 copies. It sold, you know, in the black community, but as far as like RIAA sales, it never certified, so it never went gold. So it's always been considered a flop or a failure. But the album really isn't that bad. I've owned it before and I've listened to it before. There's a few cuts on there. They don't really show how the Blue Moon album was made and how New Edition felt about that. That was probably Jump and Shoot Productions' idea for them to go and do an album full of oldie songs, which was like whack. It's probably one of their wackest albums, and it's an album that New Edition doesn't like to acknowledge or talk about, because it seemed like it was something they were forced to do. You know, they're doing 1950s, 1960s shoo-wop type songs. It's like, come on, man. Like, you had New Edition as a quartet. You could have came up with something really cool for that era, for that 86, 87 era. Instead, you had them singing these old songs, and you know that was all Jump and Shoot Productions ideas. So they totally skipped over all that stuff. When we finally got around to the Heartbreak Tour, I was like, okay, cool. This is probably the moment that I was really waiting to see, the Heartbreak Tour, which they actually split that between the series too. You see a lot of New Editions doing performances during the Heartbreak Tour, and then you see a lot of Bobby Brown's performances in his series during the Heartbreak Tour, which goes back to what I originally said. It would have been better if they filmed both series at the same time so that the actors can look the same. Bobby Brown's actor gained a little bit of weight from the New Editions album to the Bobby Brown series. Not too much, but it's a noticeable difference. You can definitely tell that one was made after the other. What else do I want to point out about the series that, I felt like could have been better, or that I didn't like, or that I did like, was part 3 of the New Edition story. I felt like that was like really rushed. It seemed like once they got past 88, once they got past the Heartbreak Tour, 88, Annie Heartbreak and Don't Be Cruel era, they just skipped all the way to Home Again. They don't really show the success of Belle Biv DeVoe. They don't show the success of Ralph. They don't show the success of Johnny Gill. They do like a Video Soul interview, which I remember watching that Video Soul interview as a kid with my dad. I remember watching that series and thinking to myself, like, man, this group is like the super group, man. Like, everybody in this group is shining outside of the group. You know what I'm saying? New Edition was Wu-Tang Clan before there was a Wu-Tang Clan. Like, from 1990, and Wu-Tang, I think, dropped in like 93, end of 92, 93. So it was like, as an R&B group, they were a super group before there was such a thing. You know what I mean? Which is, something a lot of people don't really acknowledge. Well, maybe they do, but, the mainstream doesn't acknowledge them as such. From 90 to 96, New Edition fans, there was so much things that were being sold. Johnny Gill's third album, Ralph's first album, Belle Biv DeVoe's first album, Bobby's third album, the Bobby album, which is covered in the Bobby series a little bit. But that album sold a lot too. It didn't sell as much as Don't Be Cruel, but that Bobby album had a lot of good records on it, and they just kind of, the series itself, the Bobby series, just kind of like blew over it. You know what I mean? I guess they were so focused on the Whitney Houston aspect of the story, which I have to be honest, I am a hip hop fan, so I was never really a fan of Whitney Houston. I mean, she's a great singer, but I don't really listen to singing songs like that other than New Edition and what comes from their camp. So, a lot of the stuff that was put in the Bobby Brown series about Whitney Houston, I really wasn't interested in. The love affair that he had with Janet Jackson was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, but I wasn't like reacting to it like, oh my God, he's having sex with Janet Jackson. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, bro, come on, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? He's a big star. She's a big star. She's 23. He's 20 years old. You think they're not gonna meet up and get together? Like, a lot of people had a reaction like, oh my God, how does this happen? Like, their world is gonna end because Janet Jackson smashed Bobby Brown. Okay. The thing about that situation is, from what I saw in the Bobby Brown series, Janet Jackson basically rejected Bobby Brown. So he put that in the series. No man wants to be shown as being dumped. You know what I'm saying? And he showed that in the series. So hats off to him. Yeah, you had sex with the girl, but she also rejected you. And a lot of people don't really pay attention to that aspect of the series. Now, I do wish that the New Edition story should have had another night. I think New Edition's series was 3 nights, but it should have been 4. Bobby Brown's story was probably long enough. I will critique the editing of the Bobby Brown series. You can definitely tell there was different directors on the New Edition album, on the New Edition series, than there was on the Bobby Brown series. The editing is definitely different. It's jarring in the Bobby Brown series. It's very choppy. There's not a lot of like segues from one scene to another scene. Another thing that was cool about the series from both Bobby Brown and New Edition was that they gave a shout out to Corey and Travis, original members of New Edition. If you remember, there was a couple scenes in the beginning of part 1 where Bobby Brown is like, let's go get Corey and Travis. Like, Corey and Travis, they're down. Well, Corey, Travis, and Jimmy, you see Jimmy in the Bobby series. He's the one that's stabbed by the Puerto Rican boy outside at the basketball court. Jimmy, Corey, and Travis were all recruits of Bobby Brown. If you notice that in the New Edition story, the group is started by Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown is the founder of New Edition. Yeah, he got kicked out of his own group, but the group was created as him being the singer and him inviting his friends on stage to help him get over stage fright. But during the process of creating the group, I'll even say before Ricky and Ralph came into the group, Corey, Travis, and Jimmy were a part of it, but they didn't take the group seriously. They were kind of in and out, kept missing practice, and Brooke was very strict. So Mike and Bobby are definitely the originals, but the Jimmy, Corey, and Travis were also members from their neighborhood, their apartment complex, that were a part of the group, but didn't really stay till they ended up getting Ricky and Ralph, and we see that Ronnie comes later on. What else do I want to say about the series? I'm kind of shooting off the head here. Like I said, I'm very happy that these films exist. I probably will do a follow-up video to this once I review this one. Like I said, I'm just kind of shooting off the head and talking about it. I'm late doing this video, and I've been intending to do this for a while. I just haven't had the time, but now that I have a little bit of time to myself, I said, let me go ahead and shoot this video and upload it right quick. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. If you've got anything you want to say about what I said, just leave a comment. If you disagree with any of the information that I shared, you can leave a comment about that as well. I'm cool on subscribers, but if you want to subscribe, that's I'm cool on that too. It's all good. So I'm gonna go ahead and end this video out, and this is Fly the Cool Guy out, man.